Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's Thursday morning. How are you all doing? So, what's the subject for today? Well, I want to talk about immigration jurisdiction. Why? Because a lot of times I'll get people in Idaho or New York and they'll go, "You're in California. How can you help me?" You know? Or they'll say, "Is the case in California ruled the same as in Texas?" So, that's what I want to talk about, okay? Immigration jurisdiction. And then after that, I will go back. I will see what questions you guys have, and I will answer them. And then, of course, I have consults I have to give later this morning. So once that time rolls around, I'll have to say adios and, go on my way. All right. So let's get to it. So first of all, just basically, what's jurisdiction? Okay. So jurisdiction is bottom line. I mean, there's different kinds of jurisdiction, especially like if you're in law school and you're a first year law student, you're going, oh my God, what is this stuff? Subject matter jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction, But more or less, it is where you are supposed to bring a case. Okay. And so, there's different ways of looking at it, but basically where you live is more or less, there's a very generalized rule, but more or less where you need to bring it. So the question is, when you're looking for an immigration attorney to help you, and let's say you live in Montana or Alaska or somewhere that there's not a lot of immigration attorneys, and the ones that are don't practice it full time type thing. The question is, can somebody who's from a different state, licensed in a different state, represent you? Okay, and for most laws, the answer is no. Okay, but the law is that if you're practicing a federal law, a federal subject, then you are able to practice anywhere in the United States. You just need to be formally licensed in at least one place. So, like for example, I'm licensed in California and I'm licensed in Texas. Okay. But, which means obviously I can, without doubt, I can practice all state issues in California and all state issues in Texas. But if I practice federal law, I can practice anywhere. I can take clients from Rhode Island, Florida, Mississippi, wherever. And you're saying, why is that the case? Okay, well, when you think about it, federal law is the same everywhere, okay? Now, there are different kinds of federal law. I mean, the ones I can think of right off are, immigration, of course, tax, copyright, patent, maritime law, things like that. That it doesn't matter where you are, it's the same body of law that controls it. As opposed, let's say you're doing criminal law, okay? I mean, if you're in California, there's the California Criminal Code. Likewise, every state has its own criminal code. Not to say that you can't, for criminal law, not to say that there's not federal crimes, which there are, okay? But for state crimes, each state has its own individual code. That doesn't exist with federal law, with like immigration. You can't go, for example, to Tennessee and get the Tennessee immigration code. It doesn't exist, okay? You still have federal immigration code no matter where. So that's why, if you're practicing federal law, which I am, you're able to go in any state. Now, the next question I have is, well, if that's the case, why why, does the Ninth Circuit rule for basically nicer and better and easier than the Fifth Circuit, for example? Well, those are two different things. You have the law itself, and then you have the rulings on the law. Okay? And for example, Texas, Fifth Circuit, California, Ninth Circuit. Okay? Fifth Circuit's more conservative. That's just a fact. And it's more difficult to get a lot of things through immigration-wise, even though the law's the same, because of the rulings of the district courts, of the federal courts, even the rulings of the Board of Immigration Appeals will differ depending on the circuit that you happen to be living in. So while I'm telling you I can practice everywhere, it doesn't mean I do the exact same thing no matter where I am. That's not true. Okay? Depending where I am representing the client will depend on the forms of relief I'm requesting, the type of relief I'm requesting, the manners of which I'm presenting the cases. I'll need to, of course, research how the BIA, the Board of Immigration Appeals, applies the laws there. I'll need to see how the circuit courts applies the laws there. So it's a matter of knowing what to do that allows me to represent clients all over the U.S. Okay, I always find it funny when, odd when, a client will say, what is the percentage of cases you've won for whatever? Like for 212H waivers or whatever it is, or for asylum cases. And it's such an irrelevant question because everything is different. If you take 100 asylum cases and you have some asylum cases in California, maybe, some asylum cases in New York, maybe some in Florida, maybe some in Texas, maybe some in Alaska, the application of how the judges generally rule on asylum cases is different everywhere. And then the facts are always different. The judges themselves are different. The reality is you could have one judge in room A and another judge in room B 10 feet down. Same jurisdiction, 10 feet down. And one might approve and one might deny. Okay, that's the reality. So the point is not what's the percentage of cases, like lawyers don't keep, at least I don't. I've had up to the present time, I think I've opened, since I started my career, maybe 5,700 cases. So you can't really divide them in all the different subject areas of immigration. Do a calculus on, which ones won, which ones lost, why they might have lost, why they might have won. You just don't keep that. You become proficient and an expert at what you do, and you present the best case possible in the jurisdiction that you're in. Okay, that's how it works. So that's why I can represent people all over the U.S. So if your choice is to be able to walk physically into an office, with a lawyer who does immigration part-time versus just having a conference Zoom call, for example, with me, and then I, be able to run the case who does immigration all the time, you ought to pick the one who has more experience, who does it all the time. I mean, you wouldn't believe how easy it is, how it doesn't matter these days that you're not local. I mean, it hasn't for a long time, but really doesn't matter these days. Like, for example, the other day, there was a client that called. It was actually the fiance, and find out that the person's, his fiance's in detention, and he has to get someone to represent her. And again, I'm in California. She's in, I think it was Missouri, and the hearing was in 2 days. I mean, do you know if you had to fly there, you couldn't even hardly get a plane ticket to do all that. And whatever. But the way things are these days, you just fill out the necessary information. You send it to the immigration court. You show them you want to appear virtually. And then, within moments they approve, if everything's done right. And then you just call in and you wait. And when you call in to the court, what they do is they put you in the virtual waiting room until the time comes for you to actually appear. And then the judge presses a couple things and boom, the judge starts talking to you and you're the one that's on there. And it's just as good as if you're there. Okay? So that's all I'm trying to say is that jurisdictionally, immigration lawyers can practice all over the U.S. Okay? Alrighty. So let's go back and see what questions we have. It's approaching the end of the week, so we may or may not have any, but we'll see. All right. I noticed it says I have nearly 30 years experience in immigration law, but that's I was licensed in 1992, and I did do, actually that's an accurate statement. I was licensed in 92. I did 3 years of civil litigation before I went to immigration law. So that means I started immigration law more or less around 1995 or 1996, which means that it is about 30 years. Wow, time passes. Okay, let's see. Okay, be patient. Just going down, just seeing what we have. Okay. I know. There's nobody talking right now because I'm scrolling down just to see if and what questions we have. Give me a second. Okay. This is from F-22 Raptor, which those are really cool to watch fly, by the way. Are you a pilot? Is American citizens safe in the United States? Can they get deported as well? Well, I mean, I understand why you're asking that, and obviously pre-Trump, that would have not even been a question that people would have dreamed about asking. But I understand why you're asking it. And the answer legally is yes, American citizens are safe. And the answer is no, there's no jurisdiction to deport them. But given that I said that, the stuff that he's doing is beyond the pale. I mean, ripping Venezuelans that have a right to fight their case out of the country and just throwing them into maximum security prisons in El Salvador, getting orders from the Supreme Court and everywhere else that they need to return them and pretending like, the administration pretending like they can't, the administration just ignoring orders of the district courts, of various courts. I mean, it's just lunacy. So I can foresee that Trump throws out all of the law and says, well, your grandparents weren't born in the U.S., your parents weren't born in the U.S., so therefore, we have the right to deport you type thing, or, the laws making it so that even if you weren't born here but are a U.S. citizen because your parents, or you derived citizenship and so forth, or you naturalized, I can see him just ordering crazy lunacy, just procedures that not just violate the Constitution, but essentially pretend it doesn't even exist. So to answer your question, they're safe, but if something happens, you need to be prepared to fight it, okay? Don't let them steamroll over you, okay? If you know someone who's a U.S. citizen who's getting picked up or whatever it is, don't let them steamroll over you and fight the case, okay? I mean, it's no pleasure having to fight if you're being improperly detained or if you're being improperly deported or whatever, but that's what you have to do, okay? And by you, I mean get an attorney who knows how to fight these cases, like me, and fight them. Don't let this stand. Don't sit there and let the government pretend the Constitution doesn't exist. Okay? All right. What else do we have here? Thanks for all the hearts, everybody. We almost have 1,000. Oh, as I spoke, we have 1,000. Okay. By we, I mean me. I appreciate it. Okay. Raphael got the #1 gifter badge. Any news regarding the I-45 asylum base, or are they still paused? This is a good question, Moral, because here we have people, and yes, they're still paused. Here we have people who went through the laws of the United States, applied for asylum, fought their case. They could have lost. I mean, the majority of people do. But they won. And it was either appealed or not appealed, but it came back and they're ready to rock and roll. They're ready, per the law, after they won, to apply for asylum, to apply for the green card, 1 year after being granted asylum, and Trump snaps his fingers, says, stop it. Okay, there's no legal basis for it. Zero. Okay, zero legal basis for it. And again, it's like pretending the laws don't exist. Like you didn't go through everything you went through legally to do it. So there's all kinds of lawsuits that are up, and ultimately at the end they're going to say there's no justifiable reason for stopping en masse asylum applications. People who've won, and not asylum applications, people who've won asylum from getting the green card. You can't just snap your fingers and make laws on the books disappear. Can't do that. Okay, I mean, obviously, what he'll say is it's a national security risk and it's an invasion and this and that. And the reality is that if that were the case, then it would be an individualized case, which would have to be looked at individually, and then there'd have to be various motions and various things that would have to be done if that were the case under an individual basis. It's not, everybody who won asylum in the entire United States cannot apply for the green card now because they are a risk to the national security of the United States. Okay, do you see where I'm going with that? All righty. Maria got the #1 gifter badge. Okay, let's see. Let me just see what we have. Wait, I was just about to say this question and then it scrolled way up. Give me a second, then I got to scroll up. Okay, is this where I was? Just a minute. Yazin, you like the live a lot. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, let me get to the next question. Okay. Hello, I filed my I-130 myself from my wife back in 22. Haven't heard back from them. It's only a receipt. Well, that's a long time. This is for Erasmo, especially if you're a U.S. citizen. If you're a U.S. citizen, you absolutely, definitely should have heard back by now, and it's time to do a writ of mandamus. Force them to make a decision, okay? That's where you sue immigration. I have people who go, well, if I sue them, they're going to get mad and they're never going to approve it. No. That's not how it works. When you get an attorney who knows how to sue immigration and does a writ of mandamus, you have all the leverage in the world, and all of a sudden everything falls in place and it comes through, okay? So don't just sit there and wait for them to get with you. Move on this. Get the RIF filed. Okay, everyone. This is for Candy. Everyone deserves to live a happy life where they feel safe. Absolutely. And I agree with you, 100%. But it's getting more difficult these days, as I'm sure you know. And so, even though it's getting more difficult, just keep the fight up and keep it going. What do we have, 3.5 years to go? Okay. They're asking anyone who they want for their ID papers. I know. It's like we're in North Korea. It's a shame. It's shockingly a shame. And people who are here who have no legal background and so forth, they're afraid, obviously, and they have right to be. So anyone in that position should get and retain an immigration attorney. And I know that's going to be difficult, but there's got to be some way of stopping them from running over people. That otherwise, that's all they're going to do. All right. Just a minute. Did an interview for an I-485. Will one be required for, I think you're saying, will an interview be required for the I-751 removal of conditions? It might be, but then it might not be. It depends. It depends how strong your case is, you know? I mean, if you don't live together and you're 32 years apart in age and you have nothing, thanks the chosen for all the roses, yay. If you don't have a real good relationship, it's going to be hard to prove the removal, and they might very well order an interview. But if you have a decently strong case, then they won't. There's quite a few 751s where there's no interview, but I can't sit here and say for sure you will or for sure you won't. Okay. Anyways, you got the number 2 gifter badge, and you're a U.S. citizen. This is the I-130. Okay, there's a definite, absolute problem in your case then. And I don't know if your spouse is here in the U.S. or overseas. Thanks for the roses, Tillin. You have a little slash over your eye there. Are you from like Switzerland? I know from Norway and up in those types of countries, they have those types of marks all the time. Let me know. Yeah, so you have a problem. You've been waiting all these years for nothing. You need to move on this. Give my office a call. You're welcome. Okay. After approval of the I-765, how long does it take to get the actual card? Not long. Month, 2 months. That might seem to be long to you, but it's not long. Okay, Roselli, just a second. How much time do I have? I have 9 minutes and 17 seconds. Okay, misdemeanor possession of CS. Is there any chance of naturalization? Okay, you're going to have to clue me in here. What is CS? I'm trying to think. And obviously it's a drug. I don't know what it is. It depends, okay? It depends what it is. It depends when it was. It depends on other factors. There is a possibility, but I would never jump into naturalization without an immigration attorney arguing this case for you, because all they'll see is misdemeanor possession, and boom, next thing you know, not only did you lose naturalization, you're put in removal proceedings. Okay? So, give me a call. Oh, Tillin. Well, that's interesting. You're from Mexico. All right. Okay, let's see. Controlled substance not specified? Are you kidding me? That's a strange conviction to have, where it's not even specified. I mean, for example, if it was marijuana under 35 grams, then of course there's a waiver for that for the green card. But it depends. Okay, it depends. I need to see. For at a minimum, the conviction needs to be over 5 years old. Okay. Okay. Whether something's a crime of moral turpitude, or whether this is for Alejandra, or whether it's an aggravated felony, depends on many factors. I have people who in state criminal law are convicted, for example, for misdemeanors, but those could be considered aggravated felonies under immigration law. I have people who are convicted of felonies in criminal law, state criminal law, and sometimes, for whatever reason, that doesn't even make them inadmissible in immigration law, so it all needs to be analyzed. Okay, Tillin. Hey, I applied for my husband's residency. How long does it take? I am a U.S. citizen. Well, some of that depends. Okay, if it's a straightforward case, he's in the U.S., you're doing an adjustment, and he qualifies, about a year. If he's outside the U.S. and you're doing consulate processing, but again, no issues, maybe a year and a half, give or take. If there's issues, if there's inadmissibility issues, waivers, permissions to re-enter that need to be done, that needs to be taken into account because that will expand it quite a lot. So let me know more facts. Okay, asylum denied, VAWA approved, kids U.S. citizens, any trouble with the new law? You're going to have to be a little more specific. I think what you're asking is, you're referring to the one where if you have an approved asylum and a year later you apply for adjustment, those people are not allowed at this point to adjust, until the courts order it. And hopefully the executive branch follows the court orders. There's nothing on the books that's stopping an approved VAWA from going forward, okay, as of now. Who knows? Tomorrow, there might be a different story. Misdemeanors that have been dismissed, do these need to be concerned? They do, if it wasn't dismissed because of the merits. If it was dismissed because you had deferred adjudication, you did a drug rehab, you followed the directions, you did rehabilitation type stuff, then it's still a conviction for immigration purposes. Okay, yes, he's in the U.S., no issues. Then it takes about a year, but Kellen, you might want to contact me to make sure there's no issues. I hope what you're saying is accurate, but just need to make sure. Well, there is an issue. You just said below, just a penalty for coming in illegally. If he's coming in illegally and he doesn't have legal entry, then there are issues, and he very well may not be able to adjust in the U.S., especially since he didn't come in legally, which means he has to do the consulate processing. If he has to do the consulate processing, he'll be subject to the 10-year bar if he leaves. So he needs to do the provisional waiver of inadmissibility. So there are absolutely issues in your case. Absolutely issues, okay? And right now, for them to adjudicate the provisional waiver of inadmissibility is taking nearly 3 years. It's crazy, okay? Katie Lynn got the number 2 gifter badge. We're approaching the end of our session today. Dismissed because it was pleading guilty. Well, an unpaid ticket. This is for, how come user 121792710497 you don't have a real name here? It's hard to say that. Generally, an unpaid ticket, like driving, that's not going to make you inadmissible at all, so that shouldn't be a problem. All right. Okay, let's see what we're doing here. Well, there we go. All right. Well, it's been fun. We've approached the end. I got to go take care of some consultations. So everybody have a good day. I hope everybody learned a little bit today. And until the next live, I'm signing off.